Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, and of course, our beloved partners. Welcome to the car review of Team 2025, where we build, read, discover. Before we start, I'd like to ask you to turn your phones on silent mode or airplane mode, whatever you prefer, if you haven't done so already. Building Red Discover for us was quite a journey of ups and downs, of learning about ourselves, each other, and of course, innovation and how to build a solar car. But where did that journey start? Where did we meet each other? For that, I would like to invite on stage our operational manager and one of our mechanical engineers.
It's great to see you all here. We are super excited to introduce the amazing project of Solar Team Twente, a project that is actually driven by passion, an incredible project where we can work on world-class technologies. And we are doing so by solar racing for the World Cup title. We'll now give you a few points on what makes our 2025 edition so special, and also highlight a few exciting elements about our team. My name is Daniel Woning, and I'm the operational manager, which makes me responsible for the logistics of the race, as well as facilitating in the Netherlands. Together with Bas Huttenhuis, we will now quickly walk you through how we got this far as a team.
Yes, my name is Bas. I'm part of the technical team and I'm responsible for how the car drives and that it can safely brake and steer. But enough about us. Let's go to the beginning of Solar Team Twente 2025.
Yes, our team started with 2 editions of these summer schools. A summer school is a weekend organized by the previous Solar team, and it is intended to meet your fellow teammates as well as get introduced to the Solar Team adventure.
We met each other at the Solar Team office, and this was a very interesting moment. Here, the realization came that this group of people, where most of the members had not met each other before, that this group would become your family within 1 year. The biggest and hardest challenge that you will do will all happen because of the collaboration of this group.
And that's what we are today, one big family. And within this group, you can see the diversity among its members. Our team is split into a mechanical, electrical, and a management team, and those differences were seen during our first challenge.
We had the task to make the old mock-up drivable again. The mock-up is an aluminum car used to test our mechanical and electrical components. And immediately during this task, the whole team got into specialization. With the mechanical team, we were searching for the drill, and the electrical team had found the lights and batteries. And the management team?
Yeah, we brought them coffee.
All jokes aside, during this weekend, we learned a lot about what it takes to build a solar car. This was our first experience of what it's like to be part of Solar Team Twente.
And as soon as we started our own adventure, our eyes were on the Illumin European Solar Challenge, the European Championships of Solar Racing. And this is a 24-hour race held in Belgium at an old Formula 1 track.
At that time, we're just getting started with solar cars, a field that goes far beyond the knowledge students typically gain at their studies. Working on this project meant diving into highly specialized technologies. And let me tell you, it's quite exceptional technology what we're driving with at Solar Team Twente.
For your information, this car is able to cruise at more than 95 kilometers an hour, while using the power you would need to toast your bread.
The challenge itself, the race itself was challenging and filled with fun. You're thrown in the deep, which makes it more challenging, but also extremely educational. We faced many problems along the way, and trying to solve them as quickly as possible became part of the adventure. For example, after just 10 laps, we lost connection with the entire car, which means our strategic plan could be thrown out of the window.
For me, I was one of the drivers, and that meant we had to be ready for a quick driver swap at all times. So we slept in a driver's bus right next to the pit stop. Similarly, the service crew has to always be ready for a quick repair of the car. Something as simple as the toilet break had to be strategically planned. The calm moments where nothing happened could be quickly followed by a rush to the car to do some quick fixes.
For me, the night shifts were incredibly exciting. Racing on a circuit in the middle of the night and seeing the sun come up was a very special experience. Staying awake the whole night on pure adrenaline was intense.
Luckily, it wasn't only intense, but also extremely valuable. We got much stronger as a team during this challenge, and we got to know each other way better in the way we work, how we handle stress differently, or how we communicate under pressure. And between the intense moments, there was time to work on our friendships as well. This all happened while gaining a deeper insight in how solar cars function in a real racing condition.
Because our goal this year is to design and build a new solar car. We want to build up on the knowledge of our previous team to create the best solar car the world has ever seen.
Since this summer, we are going to the Bridgestone World Solar Challenge, a race from north to south Australia, which is more than 3,000 kilometers straight through the Australian outback. And the race comes with a strict set of regulations. Within these constraints, we push the limits to build the best solar car possible.
These regulations differ each edition, and the biggest challenge for us this year was an increased solar panel by 50%. This had an impact on the whole team, from our electrical engineers trying to create the best solar panel to our structural engineers designing and building a car strong enough to handle such a panel.
And while the technical team is busy building this car, others are already working on the transportation of the car and all race material to Australia. Because let me tell you, Solar Team Twente is a super fun project, but it also comes with some really unusual challenges.
For example, when we needed to find someone willing to ship our self-made batteries.
Or when we need to smoothly coordinate 10 convoy cars to race one solar car through the outback.
And let's not forget the time that some of us worked a 22-hour shift to meet the deadline we had set by ourselves.
Altogether, it can be really intense, but it's also wonderful to realize the amazing opportunities and valuable lessons we achieve as students.
Possibly the biggest change of them all, which really turned this entire edition upside down, was shifting racing to 2 months earlier. Never before, in more than 20 years of Solar Team Twente, have we built a car this fast. The difficulty of the challenge became more intense, because in 1 year, we brainstorm over concepts, complete a detailed design phase. Our parts go into production, we need to assemble the whole car and test every single component to be perfectly prepared for the race.
Finally, we would like to close off this introduction by saying that this is all realized by just 17 students, which in our eyes really enhances the challenges we're working on, from gathering the right knowledge to arranging the testing of our self-built car and everything in between.
During the rest of the evening, others will share the technical elements of the car, as well as their journey with Solar Team Twente.
And we would also like to thank everyone here for supporting us in our journey. It makes us very proud to finally present our brand new solar car.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the moment supreme.
We're going to the moment we've all actually been waiting for.
Over the past year, we've given it our all.
Through late nights, early mornings, some setbacks and some breakthroughs.
With blood, sweat and unshakable drive.
This is finally the moment, after countless of hours of designing, dreaming and building.
We're excited what we will share, what we will race with in the Australian outback.
Here she is.
Our passion.
Our future.
Our masterpiece.
Our brand new car.
Red Discover.
Through the heat, through the grind, through the blood, through the sweat, through the tears.
Loyalty inside my DNA.
All that stuff that you put in has come down to this moment.
I got loyalty inside my DNA. I got peace, got war and peace inside my DNA. Pain and joy inside my DNA. This that kiss the bed. This that I got.
By us all, by our team. I couldn't have wished for a better team. So proud of ourselves to be standing here tonight. Red Discover, we like to call her Disco. Whilst building Disco, we went through a lot. About ourselves, each other, a journey full of innovation and building a solar car. But we also learned how to build a solar car. But what did we learn in that process? Let's start off by our MAS sub-team, introduced by two of our aerodynamic engineers.
Thank you, Daniel. My name is Guus, and together with Mees, we are part of the MAS sub-team. This team consists of mechanical, aerodynamic, and structural engineers.
As a MAS team, we're super proud that we have built this car.
It looks awesome, but we're not just here to show it off. We want to take you through our process of getting from a concept into our actual final solar car.
It all began sometime around August, in the middle of the summer. Back then, we were staring at our computer screens and wondering, why does a solar car look like this?
Because, I mean, you don't see a car like this on the road every day.
No, we use the same basic aerodynamic principles, such as boats and airplanes. Just like airplanes, we want to move through the air with as little air resistance as possible. That means smooth curves, minimal edges, and a wing-like shape that lets us glide right through the air.
Oh, so that explains why we're at an airport. Our car's wing-like shape more closely resembles that of a plane instead of that of your normal everyday vehicle.
In fact, the shape of a wing is something we have studied a lot. On the one hand, you have the wings of airplanes, which generate lift, that lift the airplane off the ground. On the other hand, you have the wings of a Formula 1 car, which generate downforce that lets the car stick to the road. With our solar car, we try to be in the middle, not creating lift nor downforce, but to cut through the air like a knife.
And it is with these basic aerodynamic principles that we were tasked to turn theory into an actual 3D model of a solar car. Not an easy task, I must say, because do you remember how our first car looked?
Yeah, I do. It had lots of improvement.
Yeah, it had quite a bit of character. And then we were tasked, how do we turn this into an actual final solar car?
Through lots of iterations. For every version of the solar car, we simulated how the air flows around it, getting these nice pictures. Every version we analyzed and tweaked, hoping that the next version would be better than the previous one. However, this process takes a lot of time.
And with the race, 2 months earlier, we had to work more efficient, because we had to save time somewhere.
And that's why we're only getting a hang of simulating and modeling after a while.
So that meant that to get the best solar car possible, we not only had to work harder, we also had to work smarter.
We had to think more than just the shape of the solar car. We had to think our entire timeline. If we could somehow shorten the production phase, we as aerodynamic engineers would have more time to iterate, thereby creating a better car.
So that meant that for the first time in Solar Team Twente's history, we changed our production method to one optimized for speed. This meant that we had more time to model, simulate, and optimize our solar car, creating this final end result.
So now we've got a beautiful design on our computer screen, but how do we actually turn that into a real solar car?
Well, that's the tricky part. We need a structural frame strong enough to survive the 3,000-kilometer long race, and that all while still being light enough to be driven efficiently.
And that is where carbon fiber comes in. This super lightweight material is also really strong, although only in one direction. That's why we use woven carbon fiber. This material is strong in all directions, although it's a bit heavier.
And we do not need that strength in all directions everywhere on our car. That's where unidirectional carbon fiber comes into play. With our car being so much bigger than previous years, panel flexibility became a real issue. Unidirectional carbon fiber gave us a clever way to reinforce our panel without adding too much extra weight.
It all sounds great in theory, but once you start laying all those layers of carbon fiber, it's not exactly plug and play.
No, we learned pretty quick that laying those layers of carbon fiber is not as easy as it sounds. And on top of that, we had a new issue. With our car being so much bigger, we couldn't even reach the bottom of our mold.
Yeah, but of course, we found a very comfortable solution, laying the carbon fiber while hanging upside down. All jokes aside, we were working from Monday morning until late Friday evening, all to finish the car in time.
We practically lived at our production location, turning it into our base of operation for months.
Every day, wake up, laminate, eat, laminate, and maybe sleep, and then repeat the very next day. It may sound exhausting, but when you're working on something this cool, it's totally worth it.
Especially when the time came to finally release our shell from the mold.
Yeah, because even that didn't go smoothly.
No, we would have hoped that after all that work, the shell would just pop out easily. But of course it didn't. It took a lot of hard work, a bit of creativity, and let's say, some questionable tools.
But when it finally came out, it felt amazing. It felt like the car was coming to life after those weeks filled with blood, sweat, and epoxy.
It was the result of 2 intense months, working brutal hours, but we got ourselves through with some nice fried snacks. So now, production is over, we have a shell, it's time to drive.
No, not so fast. We don't have a steering system, a braking system, or even wheels. We need to fill the outer shell with components to turn this into a rolling vehicle.
And as you can see, our car is huge. With our panel alone being 1.5 times bigger, this means the stresses on all our components is increased significantly.
We had to rethink everything. How do you open such a giant solar panel without tipping the car over? And how do you handle strong winds when you're basically driving a sail?
It meant redesigning hundreds of parts. Every bolt, bracket and bearing had to be reviewed and re-engineered. Not only to just make them lighter, but also to make sure they would hold up under the harsh Australian conditions.
Because in solar racing, it's all about balance between the weight, reliability, and the performance. The car needs to be fast, stay stable, and thrive in a harsh Australian outback.
It has been a massive challenge, but every step has been totally worth it.
From the smallest mechanical parts to the structure to the shape, this car has been the result of thousands of decisions. But with just carbon fiber and fancy aerodynamic, this car won't get very far on its own.
No, we not only want a car to roll, we also want to drive, race and win. And for that, we need power, intelligence and control. That's where our electrical team comes in. They will tell you more about the brain, muscles and nervous system of our car. So let's give it up for our electrical team.
Thank you, Guus. My name is Bo, and this is Timothy, and we're thrilled to share with you what we've been working on this year. Our goal for tonight is to give you a bit of insight and show you what we've been working on as an electrical team and what challenge we faced along the way.
We get it. If you're not familiar with electrical engineering, it can seem like pure magic. But don't worry, we'll try to keep it as clear and as simple as possible.
And to be honest, sometimes it still feels like magic to me too. All right, let's get right into it. So, our car has a lot of electrical components, some basic components that have to go in the car just to make it drive. So we got a solar panel that's connected to a motor, that's connected to a battery, that's connected to a battery management system, going to an onboard computer, steering wheel.
Bo, please stop. This doesn't sound like magic at all. This just sounds like insanity. All
right, maybe you got a point. As you can imagine, every component has to go in the car. And it's there's so much that has to go in the car just to make it drive. And almost every part has room for improvement.
Exactly. And what made this extra challenging for us is that we had to make a lot of these big design decisions in the beginning of the year, when we barely even knew how a solar car worked.
As you can imagine, every part has its own set of pros and cons when it comes down to improving the solar car.
And to decide what's best for the overall project, we need to carefully weigh all of these pros and cons for all the proposed ideas. Then we focus on the ones with the most benefits, the fewest drawbacks, and the ones that we can realistically complete within the short time frame of just a single year.
Exactly. Even after narrowing things down, not every project makes it to the finish line, and sometimes could end up not as impactful as we initially had hoped it would be. One project we worked on was on the drivetrain, and it's an example of this. The drivetrain is one of the most important parts in the whole solar car. It's actually what makes the car move. Our goal for this project was to make the whole drivetrain more efficient by changing certain parameters in the system.
And the challenging part for us here is that our drivetrain is completely designed in-house. That means that very few people outside of our team actually understand how it works or know how to improve it. So we got our hands on the best measurement equipment that we could find and began testing.
And the results showed that we were already at the optimal point, which is great news, of course, but a little disappointing for us. We, as engineers, want to improve something and not find out that it was already at this optimal point. So we did some more testing, talked to more people, and still had to admit we are really at the optimum point. Bit of a bummer, of course.
What do you mean? That means we have one of the best, if not the best, drivetrain in solar car racing, and you're upset about it?
Well, if you put it like that.
As engineers, we feel the need to keep pushing for more efficiency. But improving the solar car is not only about boosting performance. Sometimes it's also about validating that we've already made the best design decisions. Or it's about improving the reliability, safety, or ease of working with the project. A great example of that kind of impact is our onboard computer, Daphne. But you know how every team has that system that just has to work or everything else falls apart?
Well, for us, that's Daphne. Daphne is our onboard computer that collects all the data from the solar car and sends it back to our team.
Exactly. And this year, we've made Daphne even better. First, we've upgraded the Wi-Fi chip to make her have a stronger, more reliable connection, even in the middle of nowhere.
We cleaned up the circuit, fixed some small inefficiencies that were wasting power. Not a huge change on our own, but hey, every milliwatt counts.
And lastly, we replaced some of the connectors. These new connectors are more robust and help to make the system fully water and dust tight, which is super important when you're racing through the outback.
These changes might not seem like a dramatic overhaul, but for us, this is huge. Daphne is like the brain of our entire solar car. That means every small improvement there will ripple through the whole entire system.
Yes, and more reliable data means better decisions during the race, and that could be the difference between first or second place. The in-race decisions are really important, however, there are also some very big decisions that need to happen before the race even starts.
One of the biggest decisions we've made was early on in the year, and it was about the cell choice. And with that, we mean both solar cell and battery cell choice.
To start off, we need to research the entire market to find the best options available. Sometimes this meant looking into cutting-edge technology that wasn't even public yet. It's a time-consuming process, but a crucial one. Even a small difference in performance, just a few percentage points, could mean the difference between winning or losing.
Exactly. With the pressure of a shortened timeline and the whole team counting on us, we definitely felt the weight of that decision. We found ourselves wondering, what if? Better options became available later. But we had to make a call. As engineers, we're trained to make the best possible decision with the available knowledge at the time. So that's exactly what we did.
And by doing this, we ended up with two great cell choices, which we are confident will help us win.
Now that we have chosen a battery cell which we wanted to use, we could finally design a pretty amazing battery. Isn't she beautiful? It's not only a great looking battery, it's also the whole process going from design to production to shipping has been done in a record time. Normally, the battery is shipped 2 months before the race, but this year everything has to be wrapped up and shipped 4 months in advance.
I know what you're thinking. The race is 2 months earlier, and we decided to ship the battery even sooner. Well, it turns out that the Australians aren't big fans of our European insects hitching a ride and wreaking havoc on their very unique and terrifying ecosystem.
It's a bit wild. I still don't get why they just don't let in all our friendly insects in and let those other poisonous creatures die. Well, I'm an electrical engineer, so what do I know about biosecurity? What I do know is that we ran into some problems right before we wanted to ship the batteries to Australia.
Yeah, definitely not great. It turned out that one of our 3 batteries was acting up, so we decided to hold that one back and send the other 2 packs to Australia. This was fine since we had planned to do this anyways, but this meant we didn't have a battery left in the Netherlands to test the solar car with.
But hey, we got a solar car, right? Can we just drive on the power of the sun?
Well, if only the Dutch weather was that reliable, then all our problems would be solved.
All jokes aside, fixing the battery became our top priority. Without it, we couldn't test the electrical components, and that meant no testing of the mechanical components either. Everything was on a hold.
After testing, we found out that one of the cells hadn't been welded properly, and we figured the fix would be simple, just re-weld it. So we did, but it didn't work.
As you can imagine, it was quite a disaster. We need this battery to make the car drive.
We began preparing for the worst, making a new battery and even faster than before. But before going into full panic mode, we decided to give it one last shot to save the damaged battery. And that's when we came up with the idea to grind into the battery, a very logical and risk-free idea.
Well, not everybody was that fond of that idea of cutting into the battery. Something about exploding cells?
Well, thankfully that didn't happen, and we fixed the issue. And honestly, it was a huge relief for the entire team. But next to the battery cell choice, we also have a wonderful solar cell that needs to be used to design a solar panel. But this was also not as straightforward as we thought it would be.
We're lucky to have brilliant aerodynamic engineers who gave us a wonderful double curved solar panel surface, which is great for our dynamics, but not so great for our solar panel design software, which could only handle solar cells arranged in a single direction. That meant it couldn't handle the full shape of our panel. So we had to upgrade the whole software just to make sure that it could handle the panel itself.
And with the new software up and running, we could lay out the cells exactly as they would appear on the panel. But to simulate performance, we need environmental data. Normally, we'd use weather data from past races. But this year, the race is 2 months earlier, of course, and that changes the solar conditions dramatically. We need accurate sun position and irradiance info for the entire route, hour by hour, kilometer by kilometer. Thankfully, we could reuse the timing and GPS data from previous teams to reconstruct what we needed.
With the environment mapped out and the solar panel finally simulated, we could focus on optimization, and specifically on how we want to group the cells and where to place the bypass diodes.
And why is this important? Because of shadows. The canopy casts a shadow over the panel during the day and across different sections of the route. The standard solution for this is to use bypass diodes. They let us isolate the shaded cells so that the rest of the panel can keep producing power. Without them, one shaded cell could limit the entire group.
It's like a chain. The weakest link holds back the rest, but there's a catch. When we skip these shaded cells, we lose out on the little energy they still generate. That's why we created this system called Sabine. We first ran it in South Africa, and it lets us recover partial energies that otherwise would have been thrown out. This is something what typical panels cannot do.
Sabine gives us another competitive edge in Australia, and it's the result of years of work from our electrical and software teams. Sabine acts as our solar panel optimizer, and she tries to squeeze every last bit of energy out of the panel. And last year's system worked great, but not quite how we want it to be during its debut at the World Solar Challenge.
So that's why we revisited the firmware to make it more reliable and more robust. With that, we wouldn't spend as much time constantly checking the system during the race. That meant we can spend more time on the strategy and other critical tasks. As you can imagine, it's been quite an emotional roller coaster for us on the electrical team. Going from a too good of a drivetrain to improve to, at some point, not having a battery at all. And of course, those early decisions about which solar cell and battery cell we wanted to use, which could make or break the entire edition.
It's definitely been an interesting year, never a dull moment, but despite the challenges we faced along the way, we really came together in the end, and we now have a very solid electrical system in the car. So I would say that maybe there is a bit of magic after all.
Well, let's just say I wasn't really a fan of them grinding into the battery. But I'm glad it's fixed now. Bo and Timothy, thank you for explaining some of the magic behind our magic solar car. But we don't just build a magic solar car. We also race it all the way down under. And at that, we do in the Bridgestone World Solar Challenge, with the goal of bringing the World Cup back home to Twente. But how do we plan on achieving that? What decisions do we make? How do we make those decisions? And what does a typical race day look like? Our race strategist and data acquisition will give you some insight into our race down under.
My name is Barry, and this is Job, and we are part of Solar Team Twente, which stands for Strategy and Data Acquisition. Let me quickly switch. Hello. Ooh, this works nicely. All right. Yeah, we are from strategy and data acquisition, which means that we are responsible for fixing the strategy which we raised in Australia. From day one, we are focused on Australia. Where other team members are focused on innovating and developing our car, we immediately look into the future, all to build a perfect strategy. But I hear you all think, how do you build a race strategy? Where do you even start? So, today we'll give you a small workshop how to build a race strategy. It all starts with a bunch of data. My responsibility in the team is collecting this data, having it sent to my computer, then process it, so Job can work with this. This means that everything in the car is equipped with sensors, and thus producing data. from battery cell voltages to, well, what solar modules generate the most energy. We can track every single thing.
But Barry, how do I get this data?
Well, Daphne, the onboard computer that we just talked about, is responsible for collecting the data and then sending it to me. This does Daphne through a telemetry system. Daphne sends signals, which I then receive, and then it's my job to turn that signal into data that humans like Job can actually understand. Throughout the last year, I've been working on the system and upgrading it with a tool that we call Car Monitor. Car Monitor automatically checks all incoming data and assesses the status of the car like this, transforming this interface into one with a lot more colors that indicate the status of the car. But this helps us quickly detect problems. In addition, with 2 months less, where finding problems early on is a must to have efficient use of our testing phase, this helps us greatly. But let's assume all data is good now. We can finally gather it, have it centralized, ready to be used as input. And that's only step one, the foundation. Reliable, real-time data. But then what do we do with that data?
Yeah. Afterwards, we take that data and we use it to compute the most important parameters to solve the energy balance equation.
Oh, slow down. The energy what equation?
The energy balance equation. I put a simplified version of this equation behind me on the screen. And it all comes down to making sure that the energy that's collected by the solar car is always equal to the energy that's used by the car at the end of the race. And to a strategist, the most important parameters are how much energy the car's battery can contain, how much power the solar panel will generate, and that then integrated over the time. Furthermore, we need to know how much air and rolling resistance the car has, and finally, the electrical losses of the motor and car. Well, the car's battery is quite simple this year. It's limited to 11 megajoules by rule this year, and this is not a lot actually. It's only equal to what a young adult boy eats during the day, although most parents in this room would probably argue that it is quite a lot of energy. Now, we go to the solar panel. This panel, on the other hand, needs to be measured ourselves. We do this by taking the panel and pointing it into different angles with respect to the sun. We monitor how much power it will generate, and this year, the lower sun angles are more important due to us driving in the Australian winter. And it does make quite a big of difference, because this year, the angle only reaches 66 degrees instead of the usual 86 degrees. Then we get into the rolling and air resistance of the car. We are measuring this by letting the car roll on a straight airstrip and monitoring the deceleration of the car. This deceleration is then used to calculate the resultant force, and with this resultant force, we can then we can then calculate the rolling and air resistance of the car.
Wait, but what if it's windy? Doesn't the car decelerate a lot faster then?
It does. So when it's windy, we need to monitor and measure the wind speed, the wind angle, and use it to subtract it from the force equation. Then we go to the electrical losses. And although the systems are very efficient, the motor still has some losses. We measure these by turning the motor on again and seeing how much more power the motor uses than we would expect based on just the rolling and air resistance. And moreover, the magical electrical components like Daphne, they use some of my precious energy as well.
Oh, wait, no. They are very energy efficient. Calm down.
That's true. They are very efficient, but we just need to take into account everything. Now we know everything that we want to know about the car. The only problem is that it's very sensitive to weather changes like clouds and winds. So we need to add these into the equation. We are monitoring these changes by looking at different forecast models and satellite images, and we can then use them as an input to our strategy model, which calculates the most efficient velocity for us to drive the 3,000 kilometer race from Darwin to Adelaide. And to put this into perspective, if you would start here in Enschede and you would start driving to the east, you would end up somewhere past Moscow.
Great. Now we have all parameters, we can build the strategy model. We can let it run for a while, get back to it later. But it's important to realize this is only the theory. When it all comes into practice is in Australia. And you can win a lot of time in Australia, but you can very easily lose a lot of time. This is why we plan our days to the second. So, To give you a bit of an insight on what a typical race day looks like in Australia, it all starts very, very early.
It does. At just past 5 o'clock, the service crew is the first crew that wakes up. They start the day by cleaning up the solar panel and pointing it towards the place where the sun will rise. And not much later, the rest of the team wakes up to pack up the camp and prepare the sandwiches for the rest of the day. For the first time, we will do this in the dark due to the shorter winter days, which does make it a bit harder to get the spiders out of your shoes.
Ew. Well, 30 minutes later, we will have our morning DMU meeting. DMU stands for Decision Making Unit, which is basically a control center on the car, which we always drive behind the solar car. Hey, I think our strategy model is finally done. Good. Now we can discuss this strategy model and get a plan for our race day and see if there are any last moment changes.
Yeah, and after the meeting, the first cars will already depart. The truck with all camping gear, together with the car that scouts the weather and possible camping locations, will depart. And one of the Australian logistic problems is buying enough water for the whole team to survive the 5 days in the Australian outback with. And we solved this problem by buying enough water in all weeks prior to the race to avoid all of the water to be sold out to the different solar teams. Not much later, 3 more cars will depart. And from this moment, the race leader will also let us know how much time we have left every single minute.
Nog 1 minuut.
Okay, at 1 minute before 8, the solar panel closes. We try to keep it open, and it's really worth the stress because we want to catch as much from the morning energy as possible. The sun still is a very low angle. Furthermore, we'll finish the last checks, like the communication devices of the convoy.
DMU aancoureur, portocheck.
Okay, I really need to hurry up. We need to finish at 8. So, the driver's headset is the most important. If there's anything wrong with the headset, he or she cannot talk to the race leader anymore, and then we wouldn't know if anything is wrong. The only way to communicate would then be by signaling the lights of the car or by sending a message.
20 seconden.
All right. The escort now leaves. The escort vehicle is the vehicle that guides Red Discover through traffic and deserts. It's also the place where their backup driver is sitting. And if something happens, he or she should quickly switch from one car to the other.
4, 3, 2, 1.
8 o'clock. Now, we start the race day. Red Discover will start its 9-hour workday. And from here, we'll start driving. The DMU will continue its discussion, and the service crew finally goes to sleep. And we'll keep this pattern for about 3 hours until we roll into the first control stop. Here, the already sweat-drenched driver will open its panel, point it towards the sun, and hop out of the car. Then he or she has to sprint out of the car and press the timer button. And from the moment the button is pressed, we have to wait for 30 minutes before we can drive again. Now, the whole convoy can quickly take the bathroom break, and a new, fresh driver will take over.
Leaving a control stop is again precision work. We immediately go away after the 30 minutes and get up to high speeds again with our race convoy. But to what speed? Well, the exact speed that the driver will drive is now dependent on another factor. Where do you want to end your day?
But can you not just camp by the side of the road?
Well, we do camp by the side of the road, but not every location is suited for this. You first of all have to have enough space for your entire camp. Second of all, you have to have good road access, as solar cars are not that good with off-roading. Trust me, we tried in the past. And third of all, you need to be able to get enough sun on your panel in the evening and in the morning again. These are a few of the most important charging moments of the race and have a significant impact on the speed you're able to drive the next day. So, with the strategy model, we all just build together the battery charge and the weather for the upcoming days. We calculate which location suits us best. And we try to get there by exactly 5 p.m. Not a second later, well, that will get us penalized, but also not 1 second earlier, because that just means you could have done it more efficiently. But we're finally there, our location for the night. And then it's camping time. Not your usual south of France experience, because, well, we're still in the middle of the outback, because at the start, it's quite hot in your sleeping bag. It gets all sweaty and sticky. But the more south you go, the colder it gets during night. Very cold. And, well, the deeper you want to get into your sleeping bag. But before we're able to get some rest, we have to evaluate the strategy of the day. See if there are any big notable changes. And yeah, see how we can maybe win the race. Although, all good things must come to an end. Because this pattern continues on the next day and the next day. Every time, just a little more sleep deprived. But, like I said, all good things must come to an end. And so does our race. And the end is often the most thrilling part. Because you want to finish your race with as little energy in your battery as possible. But not overshoot it and become stranded around 100 meters before the finish line. So, by tightly looking at our data, trusting our maps, and maybe chewing away our fingernails, we finally finish in Adelaide with a battery charge of ideally exactly nothing.
My name is Mark Peters. I'm the technical account manager and event manager for Solar Team Twente this year. I wanted to thank you all for being here today, especially for supporting us throughout the year. We could not have done it without you. To be able to build such a beautiful car that can go the distance, we also needed to go the distance. So, before we close, I wanted to thank our partners for being here tonight. Without you, without your knowledge, your resources, and your trust, we would not have been able to be here tonight. So, thank you for that. You are as much part of Solar Team Twente as we are. I wanted to give a special thank you to Vliegveld Twente for the amazing venue we have here tonight. Also for KIT for their amazing LED screen behind us where we have our presentation on. And Stage X for providing the amazing equipment, podium and show they have done for us. I also wanted to thank all our former teammates. You are our foundation. We build upon your knowledge, and if you have any questions, we can always rely on you. We're very grateful for that. So, now to wind it down, let's have a look at the car, have a chat, and of course, enjoy a groene knuppel. Thank you for coming here today.